the other day I got a message from a young girl from an event that I played. She said, "Good morning. It's been almost 5 years since you put your caddy bib on me on the 18th hole at the Symetra Tour event, which is now Epson Tour, in Albany, New York. When I was 10, I have photos of us on the green. Would you believe that I'm on Team Mizuno as of yesterday and a full bag ambassador at 15? We are teammates now."
No
and I was like,
way.
What in the world? And I just like started tearing up. I was like, that's so unexpected. So it was pretty fun. And so we chatted.
Welcome back to the Wedgies podcast. This is our first episode here in Florida at the PGA show. We're on the road.
Yep.
Gone mobile this week. Our first guest in Florida, Miss Alexis Belton, is with
What's
us.
up?
Our
Love the
good
name,
friend.
Wedgie.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
It fits the brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super happy to have you with us. Super happy to kick this week off with you here. Even though we're on the road, it feels like home with you here with us.
Same.
So thank you for being here. We'll get into obviously a lot of stuff with you, talk about our background, how we know each other and stuff as well. But super excited to have you. So thanks for coming out.
No, excited to be here. Always fun talking to you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Alexis is a homie, great friend of us and the pod. And honestly, I mean, we got to know you pretty much the beginning of last year.
This was
A year
actually
ago.
the first time we ever met.
That's true.
Yeah.
It was a year ago here in Orlando.
Exactly. That's true.
And yeah, I mean, it's been a great ride so far and lots on the horizon.
I would say I've probably seen y'all last year. I probably saw y'all more than I saw my friends at home.
Really?
Because we're on the road that much.
See, that's how close we are as friends. There we go.
Just kidding. Maybe I'm a bad friend to my friends at home.
But to give a little bit of backstory to that, we obviously worked a ton with World Long Drive.
Yeah.
Right. So we actually did meet here last year with Mizuno.
Yep.
First. And then obviously the rest of the year with World Long Drive. So you commentate for World Long Drive, you compete in World Long Drive, you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of things on tour. How did you find the sport? Like, what was the birth of that like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I finished up school and I wanted to play professionally. And I know you guys know a lot of tour pros. It is expensive.
Yes.
It's very expensive. So
Yes.
my head coach always said, "Hey, I think you should try out for Long Drive." And I thought, there's no way I would compete against these girls at all. And so it wound up being in Oklahoma, about an hour or so from Dallas. And I sent an email to them. So it was 2017. Said, "Hey, I know it's super last minute, but I was wondering if I could sign up for Worlds." They had an open spot, drove up there, and wound up making it to the semifinals. So it was really cool. Really great experience. Was able to pay for Q School and have a little extra.
Nice.
Oh, from that?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know, obviously, you know, we had Ryan Riesbeck on the show a couple weeks ago, a little bit ago.
Yeah.
He kind of talked about the emotion on the tee box and kind of the differences between normal golf, we'll call it, and World Long Drive. Do you think, because he was saying, and we've experienced it a little bit with some of the socials things that we've done with you guys, is you definitely have jitters up there. There's a different kind of energy. It's pretty intense. You made it maybe farther than you thought you would. I would maybe assume on the first time. So I would assume the energy was there. The jitters might be there. Do you think like having played for a long time, played competitively and normal golf maybe helped you in that kind of atmosphere when you got to that point? What was that like for you?
Yeah. First of all, Ryan is so good at explaining anything.
He
with
is.
just
Oh,
a
yeah.
long
Yeah.
drive. He's just
Yep.
like one of my favorite people out there. So it's fun. We got to commentate a little bit in Canada last year. But I think it helped in two ways. There's two big things that helped. One, yes, having a golf background definitely helped. Just being able to maintain kind of the energy that was going on. But I think the other thing is I had no expectations. Like, I didn't think that I was going to do anything. I was like, let's make top 8.
Yeah.
And then making it all the way down to the semis. I was just excited every time to get out there. The hardest part was the first tour event that I did. I was nervous at that point because I was like, oh, I kind of saw that I can do something. Now
Yeah.
I really want to do
The
something.
expectations were
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
it's funny,
awesome.
like with talking with Ryan and obviously a lot of the other athletes.
And then
it's
I won
like
that event.
Put that in there.
it's funny because it seems like there's actually a lot of people that get into the sport that way, where they're like, you know, I heard about it. I could always hit the ball far, so I figured I might as well try out. And then they end up making it to semis or the finals or whatever. And then it kind of like sparks this interest in them and
Yeah.
they keep doing it. And so I think it's just kind of interesting that there's a lot of people that come from like a very skilled golf background like yourself, but then there's also a bunch of people that aren't from that background. And it's just about catching that bug, kind of like golf itself. But, you know, once you catch it, you're kind of hooked, and it's that adrenaline that keeps you coming back.
I think a fun moment that I can think about on the tour last year was in Utah, and the range was kind of tight. There's some space on the end. We all go out and just start hitting. And you guys, like, y'all got the bug kind of. Like, y'all start hitting there.
Well, we actually did a competition, like kind of a fun social team competition there.
Or like the next day after that or something.
Yeah, but I mean, that was like one of the very few times we actually got to slip out and like hit a few during
Well, and
the
let me
event.
say this too, from our point of view, is like, it is incredibly intimidating to hit any golf ball in front of you guys.
Oh, yeah. In front of anybody.
Well, yes, but like we grew up golfing. We've been playing for years. We played in high school. We played in like competitive tournaments outside of high school and stuff too when we were younger. So like we played with people watching before and kind of those things. But like you guys are so good at what you do that like it intimidates me so much. I don't want to go up there and hit something and have you guys being like, oh, you did this wrong. You did this wrong.
Well, I think that's for anything, right? Anybody that's because you guys put out some of the best content. I mean, y'all have found a niche, but it goes beyond golf, right? And so I get nervous. I think Isaac commented on one of my posts, and he's like, "Oh, this is so good." I was like, "Yes, you did it. This is good," you know. And so I think we all have that feeling, except for maybe y'all aren't over my shoulder as I'm posting something.
Sure.
Every little thing that y'all say, you know, I'm like, "Oh, cool. The expert said it's good."
Well, yeah, it's mutual. When we, you know, hear those good compliments about our own crappy swings or, you know, good drives or whatever, it warms the heart a little bit. So it's nice to hear that it feels the same for you. But I actually wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about your sports background in general, like away from golf. Because I just found out today, which was surprising, considering how long we've known each other, that you are quite the basketball player too, right?
Yeah, that was the first love. So I played almost any sport that you could think, you know, I think now people pick one sport super, super young.
Yeah.
Did y'all play a lot of sports growing up?
We played pretty much everything.
We did. Ironically, so we're brothers, right?
Right. Wait, what?
Yeah, right.
I've known you all
I
this
say it for the listeners from time to time.
Yeah.
Ironically, what stuck for both of us was basketball and golf. We both grew up playing basketball and golf consistently. So kind of funny.
Yeah, but I mean, Little League soccer, that's,
Yeah,
I think
we
that was
did
like the first organized
T-ball,
sport we
baseball,
did,
all
and
that
then
kind of stuff
baseball,
too,
and so.
You just do it all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
You wind up falling in love with maybe one or two. Or, or even sometimes the thing that you do is not the thing that you love, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
I was in fencing at one point. Like
literally
you anything.
did
my
everything.
parents threw me in. If they offered it at like the rec center, that's what we were doing.
This was in Louisiana? Right,
yeah.
Okay.
And so stuck with basketball at one point, wind up getting scholarships to great D1 schools. And then my junior year, like my health coach was like, "Hey, do you want to join the golf team? Is it either enter my sophomore or beginning of junior?" It's like, "No way. That's not for me. Don't sign it."
Yeah.
I mean, we were a really good basketball team, but we were stopping to eat at like the T-Rex. Do you know what the T-Rex is? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a convenience store that doesn't have any gas.
Okay.
For a gas station.
Okay.
But it used to be a gas station.
Okay.
So you pull in because you think you're going to get gas, and then there's nothing there. And you're like, "Oh, man, but let me go ahead and get some food inside."
Gotcha.
So he was like, "Look, you get out of school all day, you get free food." And I was like, "I mean, we get free food in basketball. What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, we eat at Ruth's Chris."
Oh, your golf team made at Ruth's Chris in high school?
Yeah.
Shut up.
And P.F. Chang, which back then I thought was like...
It still is.
Cream of the crop. I mean...
Right.
It still is.
It's still good.
What are you talking about back in the day?
But that's when it was like first popping off, you know?
That's crazy.
And then he also was like, and you get to pick your outfits. Because I would like sometimes put a bow in my hair or something. And they'd be like, "Come on, you need to look tough." So yeah, I was just like, all right, cool. But I like my bow in my hair because I was really, really tough. I just didn't look it.
Nice.
So yeah, that was that's what got me into golf. Essentially, it was just
interesting.
Free food, day off of school.
So it was all the things around the game that got you into it.
Without a doubt. And then
That's
you get there, and as anyone who plays realizes, like, it's the ultimate competitor sport.
Oh yeah.
You hit one good shot, you're locked in.
Well, yeah, and just how much it flip flops, right? Like you could have a killer week or a killer few rounds, and then literally go out the next day or 2 days later, and it's
We
like
can flip in the same back and front 9.
Yeah.
and
Oh
same
yeah,
18.
100%.
Do you remember like that shot that kept you into golf?
I
Because
don't
y'all
remember.
were in it young.
Yeah,
but
I mean, we
that's
started
the-
that
when we were
one
like
that like was
7
like,
or 8.
oh, I can have the decision.
Yeah, I remember, at least from my point of view, like when we started golfing. So you were a little bit young. We started at like roughly the same time, though. I was like,
I mean,
you
yeah,
think?
between like, I was probably 7, you were 9 or 8
maybe
and 10,
yeah, something like that. And for the first little bit, it wasn't my favorite. I liked basketball better.
Yeah.
Like when I was, especially when I was
Yeah,
younger.
growing up, I think basketball was by far both
Because I
of
was
our
better
favorite
at
sports.
it.
Yeah.
Like I'd always been able to shoot pretty well, and like that got me by pretty good. And so I kind of had like faith in that going forward. And golf was just harder. And
we thought we'd make the NBA as all
oh yeah,
kids
I was
Right,
did.
playing
yeah.
in the NBA when I was 8. you know?
Honestly,
Yeah.
sometimes I still think that I'm like, man, they look like NBA players. That's crazy.
I'm like 5'10", like never had a shot,
Yeah.
but it was fine. I thought so back then, and golf was just so much harder because it is. Like in my opinion, it is.
Without a doubt.
It's harder, and then it wasn't until I was maybe like 2-ish years into it or so when it kind of started to make sense in my head, and I like pured one for the first time. And I was like, oh, if I go into the ground, the ball goes
Yeah.
up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those little things.
That's what I was gonna say.
And I was like, it felt like I didn't even hit anything. It
Uh-huh.
felt like I hit a marshmallow.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That was cool.
I could get used
yeah,
to that.
it's
you
the
know?
feeling. Like that's
Without
for
a
me.
doubt.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like a particular shot. It was
Yeah.
like once I flushed one pure, I was like, oh,
And I was
that's
like,
what it's
this
supposed
is how
to feel
you
like.
play this
Yeah.
game.
And then it
I
was
can
like
see how that might work.
Craving that feeling again, and then you like take 100 more swings, and you're like, what the heck? And then you
Yeah.
get it on.
And right before you
100
quit,
Yeah.
you
It's
do
like
it again.
another pure one. You're like, okay, let me just dial this in, tweak a few things, and then you start doing that, and then then it's worrying about the shot shapes, and then
Right.
kind of the spin you get, and the different holes and stuff. And so and still to this day, like there's no better feeling, in my opinion, than when you hit like a pure iron shot.
Without a doubt.
It's the best.
It's pretty satisfying. And I'll say this too. I played basketball like all growing up, played it in high school. And the first 2 years that I tried out for the golf team, I didn't make it. Like my freshman year and my sophomore
Really?
year, I had awful tryouts. Like much worse than
Okay,
my
Michael
ability.
Jordan.
No, listen, because I'd played basketball competitively growing up and done stuff like that, but I'd never played golf
Yeah.
competitively. I'd always played with my
Which
brother,
is a
with my
different
dad,
game.
with my friends, which is much more lax, completely different. You're used to that. And so then when like cuts were put on the board and it was go time and I was playing with people that I didn't usually play with, I was terrible.
Man.
Awful. And so freshman year I tried out, thought I was going to make it. Dad thought I was going to make it, all this kind of stuff, did terrible. And he's like, all right, we'll try again next year. I'm like, yeah, it's all good. Played a lot more that summer. Tried out again sophomore year and did, I think, worse. I think I did stroke worse. And I was better. And he's like, all right, we got to
That's
get
so
you
golf.
we got to get you into competitive golf. Like you don't know how to do this. I'm like, for sure. So we played
UJGA.
UJGA and stuff, and then it made a world of difference.
Wow.
It's so that was my experience with
First of all, I
basketball.
think
And
the coolest part of
golf.
that story though is that like you kept trying out.
oh, I was gonna make
Yeah.
that team if it killed me. Like
Well, it was
Yeah,
kinda-
like
it
that's
was-
that's
I needed to
really
be there.
encouraging.
It was kind of the
Yeah.
same thing though. Like for you, like I mean, we didn't get I guess we kind of got to pick our outfits a little bit, but like we had a standard shirt and everything like
Yeah.
that, and we didn't eat at Roost Chris. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, we did not do that.
But we got free golf the
Yeah.
whole year. Like if you're on the team, you got free golf. And so for two or 3
Yeah.
years, and then 4 years for me, like free golf all year long. That was the best thing, like of our childhood, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
well, we
like,
would just finish school and we'd go up to the course for
Go
a few
play,
hours. Like,
yeah.
It was awesome. It was the best.
It's we got
So
to play
fun.
at at like the local country club.
I was gonna say you probably had
Wasn't-
some crazy
wasn't
courses.
even
you
that
were playing.
like it wasn't really even that crazy. Like it was just like, man, I've never even experienced anything like this. This is cool. you
Yeah,
know?
it's a-
like
yeah.
to go inside and get a free cup of
Oh,
iced
yeah.
tea.
yeah.
I was like, oh man, I could,
Yeah,
I
and
could
they
live
do
this
it.
life.
They
Gives you
do
a little
it
taste.
different in the South too. Like
Yep.
when we went to Sea Island when we were in Georgia with Mizuno, the men's locker room, you had to take your hat off.
Oh yeah,
And I never seen that before.
Yeah.
So we're all walking around and
Really?
they keep going like this to us, and we're like, "How are you?"
Howdy.
Top of the
And they're
morning
like,
to
they're
you.
like,
Yeah.
Take your hat off. We're like, "Oh, sorry." Yeah, it was fun
Yeah.
though. It's cool.
Super fun.
But like talking about, I mean, we talked a little bit about basketball, a little bit about golf. It's kind of the competition, that has kept us there and pushed us to keep trying and stay in and all that stuff. What's been your favorite part of competing on the World Long Drive circuit? What's that like?
Yeah, I think At first it was tough for me because I was doing long drive and I was playing on the Symetra, which now is the Epson Tour.
Yeah.
So I've always played with standard length clubs. Like what's my gamer when I play has been the same for long drive. And so I didn't have that extra kind of gear, I guess you could say. And so I would just kind of go all out. I still had the personality of a golfer. I'd walk out, kind of be quiet. And then I realized, like, long drive's an entertainment sport, like,
yes, 100%.
And even when I play golf, like, I want to invite people inside the rope with me, whether that's like emotion wise, whether that's like, I hit a shot, and then after I hit that shot, I only have like 3 seconds to kind of have that emotion. And then when I'm walking to the next shot, I've always been like, let me wave or smile or chat with my caddy or whatever that may look like so I can forget. And then I arrive and go on. And so I thought about those moments in between shots of like, oh, no, that's all the time for long drive. So now it's less about, I'm practicing so I can get as far as I can. Yes. But I want to invite the audience in. And so I think that's the best part of long drive for me is entertaining the crowd, making them feel like they are there on the grid with us.
At Worlds, you were like by far the most like interactive with the crowd that I noticed.
It's so fun.
Yeah, you were like hyping people up and getting them in.
When we were post-event cutting up reels and cutting up social content to share, we had to, like, in all honesty, we had to stop making Alexis Belton videos because there was so much we had to work with.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for capturing.
So I would say you do a very good job.
I appreciate that.
Just so you know.
But I've definitely grown into it and learned about it. You know, like it's kind of like, I mean, I'm pretty sure sometimes, your first gig shooting or something, you're like, I don't want to bother people.
Yeah.
I want to stay. And now, like, y'all are like everywhere. Like, y'all know
100%.
y'all aren't gonna. Y'all trust us enough that we're not gonna knock you out with a driver with a 2-degree
Which,
head.
to be honest, that was like,
we talked about that early on in the season. We're like, it is insane that we shouldn't be standing over here.
At Mesquite, they had like the scoring table and everything that was at like a 45-degree angle from right-handed drivers. I'm like, if you tow one or like hosel rocket, you're gonna kill someone.
Right.
You never do.
Like right there.
Or you need
and then y'all
never
are
even
right
close.
there too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, never start going
So the first
farther
event,
out,
we're like,
farther out.
holy cow, like we can't. And we were like worried about getting in your guys' like eyesight and stuff like that. And then by the end, we're like,
I do have to shout out Sam Judah though, because he did hit a shot that probably could have hit y'all. It was probably like the lowest little burner in Utah. Like, do you remember this?
I'm trying to remember.
I think Kiva's nodding.
Yeah, it definitely.
He's the one behind
He's
the
like, it's
camera.
probably at him.
Well,
Okay, see, it definitely could have like
there
knocked
were a
somebody
fair
out.
amount- so you know how they have those signs that like kind of stagger out. Like there was a few throughout the season that punctured those signs. Like it was more the amateur circuit.
Oh,
It was
Yeah,
AMs
but
that hit
plenty of those guys were popping it through those signs. And we were like,
Yeah. When you're going full throttle,
Oh,
yeah.
like you cannot feel the club head sometimes.
Totally.
We were talking about this today. I was getting fitted for some new Mizuno clubs, and there was a point I was like, oh, I actually can't feel the club head. And so super cool. Got this thing called the optimizer. It's like, boom, fits your shaft really quickly.
Super nice.
So he's like, actually, use this. I use it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can finally feel the club head, and now I know where the ball's going. But when you're swinging it hard, those drivers, and they're like 2-degree lofts.
Yeah.
Like it's a putter, essentially.
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like that's the thing before getting into kind of this side of the sport is like, it's so easy to just look at it and take it for like face value of like, oh, it's just a bunch of like, athletic people, big jack dudes that are swinging out of their boots trying to hit. But like talking with Ryan on the last pod and then obviously getting to know a lot of the athletes throughout the season, like the amount of skill and like athleticism that's required to be able to do that as consistently as you guys do it is crazy.
Well, you guys train a lot.
Yeah. And I only did one event last year that kind of like was last minute.
Yeah.
Which
Connor,
you did very well in, by the way.
Thank you.
You made it
say.
to Final 8, right?
semis.
Yeah, she made the semi, yeah.
Connor from Mizuno literally came, like, gave me 2 club heads. It was
Connor's a homie.
Yeah.
Great friend of the pod
Mizuno
as
team.
well.
without a doubt. And then, so the thing is, like, different shafts have different connectors, right?
Yeah.
So I had a different one for a different club head. And
Oh,
I'm
no.
like, oh my goodness. He literally leaves the office,
Comes
drives,
down.
gives my clubs to Phyllis Meddy. She works at one of the local ranges. She builds the club.
Wow.
I fly into town, get it.
That's
We
so cool.
work all week, and then I
Dang.
finally hit it. And so that was a lot of fun, which tells you a lot about the driver. But yeah, I was like, man, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
So it's been a heck of a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, mentioned earlier on, you also commentate on the World Long Drive Circuit. So I want to talk a little bit about that here in just a second. I got a question or two more for you on the competing side, and then I kind of want to move over there.
Yeah.
One question I want to just ask really quickly is like, so you were also you were hitting at the Mizuno area today at demo day earlier this morning when we were with you. I don't know if you noticed because you were hitting, but like a little crowd had formed behind you.
Kind of in no, yeah.
For a time, there was a crowd that kind of formed behind you. How does it feel to hit the ball further than like 99.9% of men?
Of the world.
Wow, is
Straight
this a
up.
fact?
I'm saying it's a fact. I've seen.
I
you
mean,
hit.
well, when we were at Atlanta Golf and Social and we were doing the closest to the pin challenge, you remember
Oh
that?
yeah.
I mean, I hit it further than the average dude. Like I've hit it far my whole life. And I remember getting up there and you and I were kind of going at it. And I kept asking you, what club are you hitting? And it was always the same club as me. And I was like, I have never experienced that in my life. And so I was like, holy cow, she smokes it. Like even down to the irons and wedges.
That's funny.
I was like, wow, she hits a long ball.
And
I
it
guess
wasn't-
half the time I don't even realize it. Like I think it's funny you're talking about how whenever you guys watch us hit the ball,
Yeah.
I will watch the girls hit the ball and I'm like, to this day, there's no way I can compete with them. Like there's something about standing on the other side and seeing because when you're looking down, you hit the ball, you don't really see that like part, right? You have your eyes have to catch the ball.
Yeah, you gotta be ahead of the ball.
Mm-hmm. And so watching people hit the ball, I'm always like, oh,
interesting.
nugget.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Even if sometimes it's not even nugget. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
like,
like,
that looked good. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's how I feel.
That's awesome. Well, and I will say this too: the gallery of people that were watching you was 99.9% men that were watching, and they were all going, "Oh my."
They're like, oh
It's
my gosh,
always
some are pulling their phones out.
Yeah,
filming.
they're like,
That's the funniest part is like these guys will just kind of like
they
nonchalantly like pull their phone
Throw
out
it
like
up.
they're not impressed by what anyone's doing and they're like holding it here. It's- I always think that's so funny about
It
this
is
place.
actually really funny. I'm like, it's
there's a
2024.
guy-
Like,
man, just go
come
for
on.
it.
There was a guy there.
Just don't use your iPad.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. He was probably like 50 or 60, but I'm like 100% convinced he did a whole 360 around the outer perimeter with his phone like this. Because I watched him come from way beyond the Mizuno tent, past the Mizuno tent, and then way like
Oh my
past the left,
goodness.
and he just was holding his phone walking the whole time.
That's so funny.
So
Yeah, I always
funny.
say I got to do a little contest with some of the guys.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win. Like when I get to hit
Yeah.
against a guy, I'm like, I win if I beat you.
Yeah.
I win if
I
I
win
lose.
if I don't.
Because
Yeah.
you're supposed to beat me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
No, that's sweet.
that's fun. Well, let's move over to the broadcasting side. How did you even get into that? Like, how do you go from competing to the other side?
Yeah,
to
I
the dark
think
side?
I knew I was transitioning from playing golf and wanted to do something differently. It's actually Susie Whaley. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. So she was the first female president for the PGA of America. And I played golf with her daughter a lot.
Oh,
she
cool.
played on tour. And we would always talk, and my friends out there would always say, you'd be perfect, like hosting, doing something, commentating. And so I kind of kept that in the back of my mind. I graduated in mass communications, did stuff like that. So marketing. And it was actually around this time last year. I think I posted on Instagram, but I said, I'm going to do a ton of things that scare me this year. And that absolutely scared me. I did like something with ESPN Live, which was fun. Totally scared. Things that I didn't enjoy, things that I did. And so when it came to long drive, I just emailed the heck out of them.
Oh,
It was
really?
like, hey, I have these opportunities this year. I'm going to be doing these. I think I'd be perfect for it. So they first, I think they were trying different people out.
Yeah.
I went to Hope Sound and honestly afterwards it worked out. Me and Bobby worked out. And I think that's probably one of the sweetest relationships that I've had that long drive has brought me.
Yeah.
Like I knew Bobby. We traveled in China together. And he's like, no man left behind. Like I needed help. He was like, hey, you're going first class with me.
He's a good dude.
You
Nice.
know? But I think this was super special because we had 2 different personalities. And at the end of the year, like, I was tearing up.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that was like the best part of it. But yeah, I got into it by just hustling, I think.
That's awesome.
Which I consciously was thinking about this while I was watching the Chiefs and Bills game the other night. And I can't remember who the commentator was, but he was giving play-by-play, and there was not more than like 2 seconds of silence.
Oh my goodness.
And I know there's like some rule, I don't know what it is, but that there's supposed to be like a very small amount of silence, if any. What, like, is that something that you're like consciously thinking of in the back of your head of like, oh, I got to say something, I got to keep talking, or like what is that like?
You guys know how long those broadcasts
Oh,
are.
yeah.
We are there all day.
All day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's not like the action changes like
It
a
is,
crazy amount.
no,
Like,
it's not like football, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Almost not even like golf because you're having different a rotation of people coming
Yep.
in.
Yeah.
It's tough. But I'm so glad Bobby's there because
Yeah.
he's a wealth of
He's
knowledge.
he's so good at
pull
it.
from anything.
Yeah.
He can tell a story like none other. And so it was fun. There was a point where I can't remember what event it was. It actually might have been Denver or something. But we had a conversation. And I was like, hey, let me host and like ask some questions. And you just like, let me just like be your sidekick. And you go off. And I think that is what really turned it for us to having kind of a really good relationship and gelling because I don't really need to say much. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I can ask him any question, he's got to answer.
Any question.
Yeah.
No, he cruises through that.
And he's
type of
got the
stuff.
jokes too.
Yeah.
He's got all the jokes.
That he does.
Sometimes it goes over. It's like for certain people.
Sure. We've
Yeah.
seen that too.
Yeah.
That is for
perfect.
sure. One more question I wanted to ask is, so we've obviously talked about how we first met a year ago here with Mizuno.
Yep.
And then the next time we saw each other was World Long Drive.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever asked or talked about how you and Mizuno got linked up, how that relationship even happened and how we got to where we are today. How did that go?
Yeah. It was actually before COVID. I was looking for a new company to partner with. And like my agent, Harrison's here. Shout out. Harrison Smith, AAA. Also been the Big Brother, almost coming on 10 years of Big Brothership.
Nice.
But he can attest to this, but like I'm very particular about what companies I want to work with. And they just, I think, first of all, best irons. Like
Totally, 100%.
And now I saw that they were kind of pushing drivers and pushing woods. And I was like, hey, I think that's something that I want to be a part of. But I think our personalities, like them as a company, their brand and my brand, really mesh well together. So I reached out to them and we started having conversations. And then 2020 happened. Long Drive was canceled. I kind of lost touch. Then I moved to Atlanta and we picked right back up. Went out, got fitted, started playing golf. Was still playing golf on tour and just kind of reconnected there and saw as things were shifting and altering, like that there could be a space for me there. And I think that's like the journey that I'm on is just like growing, like being able to grow with the company as the company grows. I mean, they're iconic.
Yeah. Legacy brand.
Yeah. Anybody that you know, like if they have a pair of Mizunos, they probably had a really long time. Or they even got it from like their grandfather or their father, you know, like there's something that people pass down and they leave a legacy. And I think that's something when I think about my life and my career is like, I want to be a part of people that are living legacies that are like making change that goes beyond themselves. And so that's what I feel like Mizuno is and what they do and excited to be a part of it.
100%. And their crew, like, is made up of some of the best people we've worked with in the industry. Like,
Without a doubt.
they are like so kind, so genuine, and I mean, we've had a blast working with them so far. And like we said, met you a year ago, and since that time, like, it really does feel like you're kind of part of a little family, the Mizuno family. It's like it's so
Without a
close.
doubt.
Yeah.
One of the coolest parts about the company and companies like that, but Mizuno is they know who they are. You know?
Oh yeah, they definitely do.
100%.
And I think that's so hard sometimes. Like when you're trying to chase certain things or be like the
They stay in their
competitors.
lane.
They stay in their lane. They're faithful to it. And at the same time, are they growing? Like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
they're like, okay, but we're growing in our
Yeah,
lane.
exactly.
And I love that.
Like
about
they
them.
innovate. Like it's not like they're just stagnant or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they know who they are. They know what they're doing, and they're continuing to innovate in that same channel. And it's cool to watch.
They're not
it's
like
been really fun to watch.
What is it? An apple tree trying to produce oranges.
Yeah.
So,
No, and like, I mean, I think I told you earlier today, like the first time we met Chris, right? Like we were and still are like very small fish, right?
Yep.
And we look a lot of times at the people that we've met and get to work with and go, how did we even get here? Or should we even be here? You know? And the first time that we ever worked with the Mizuno team in person was last year here.
Yeah.
We shot some stuff with Chris, and we'd seen him on YouTube before, on socials before. Like he's a big deal in golf,
world.
but like especially in the Mizuno world, right? Like we've seen this person before. Had a great day with him. So nice. Everybody involved was so nice. And then we were heading to our Uber to come back to the hotel that we were staying at. And we'd said bye to everybody, but Chris was held up talking to somebody, and so he was a little bit behind us. We said bye to everybody. They
He's
said
a
bye
busy
to us.
guy.
Yeah, right.
Whoa.
He is who he is,
Whoa.
but it was fine. It was cool. And so we were leaving, and we're like getting in the Uber, and we hear like down the parking lot, and the parking lot at that course is
huge.
Yeah.
He's like on the other side of the parking lot, and he's like, "Guys, wait!" And we're like, "Oh, maybe we have something of his."
He literally comes running through the parking
With
lot.
the bag on his shoulder, like clunky,
Yeah.
like running in the parking lot with spikes on and the bag on his shoulder to come shake our hands before he left.
Yep. Gave us
First time we ever-
shake
That's
and a
like-
little side hug, and
That
Him
doesn't
through and through.
happen.
I was like, and the golf industry, like from an outside perspective, like once you're kind of in it, like it's very close knit and everybody kind of knows everybody, but there's still kind of that stigma of like everybody's a little stuck up, like they're
distant.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Well,
And
then-
it was like the most
It
War-
surprised
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Right? And he was obviously a peach the whole day. So was everybody else. Everybody we dealt with at Mizuno has been awesome. But that definitely left an impression.
Yeah,
on
that-
us. Like,
that stuck with
that
us.
a guy of his standing
Stature,
caliber
yeah.
would run over to us to say bye to us before we left. Like little things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's them through and through.
100%.
Yeah. I think about Chris, Lauren, Jeremy. Like I remember I met Jeremy a few times, and I was like, oh man, I wonder when I'm gonna meet the president. You know, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
like very
super nice guy
humble.
too. Yeah. 100%. Which brings me to my kind of last question too, that speaks to your character as well, is I want to hear about this kind of caddy story that you.
Yeah.
When you talk about
Yeah.
legacy and choosing Mizuno because they honor legacy.
Man,
let's
this
hear
is
about
like,
that.
you know, you do things in life just because you're just doing
Yeah.
life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And oftentimes you think it's maybe for the moment or whatever it might be, but you're like, you'll never see that seed like sprout
Yeah.
or what fruit comes from it.
Yeah.
And so this was like a really awesome moment that happened earlier this week. I have to pull it up. So whenever I was playing golf professionally, I on the last hole, if I knew I wasn't gonna make the cut or whatever it might have been, or if I made the cut and I knew it was my last hole, I'd always get in an argument with my caddy if I had a caddy. Like, hey man, you're done. I'm done with you. You know, we'd be theatrical. Other times I'm just like, hey, you're done. Like, you know.
Always on purpose.
Always on purpose.
Right.
He knew that it was coming. Right.
Right.
And I'd always ask, like, hey, is this okay?
Yeah,
He's
Alexis
like,
is super problematic. You don't want to
yeah, yeah. I'm like, get off the bed. No. And so he would play along, you know, and I would watch and see if there's like any juniors that were following us. And I'd say like, hey, can you caddy for me instead? And so they would come inside the rope and they'd put the bib on. And it was great because I was really struggling playing. And it was like, this is bigger than just us. You know, like in golf, individual sport, as y'all played a lot of, is like, how do you think outside of yourself? And so I'd put it on them and, you know, we'd play out. This one really, really awesome time was in Australia. This kid named Finn. And Fire My Caddy did the thing. And we eagle the last hole.
Really?
And we're like, Finn's like, I did that. You did not have an eagle this entire turn. He's like, tell me how bad I was. And it was like, you needed me the whole time. I was like, all right, cool. So anyways, the other day I got a message from a young girl from an event that I played with the Symetra. And she said, "Good morning. It's been almost 5 years since you put your caddy bib on me on the 18th hole at the Symetra Tour event, which is now Epson Tour, in Albany, New York, when I was 10. I have photos of us on the green. Would you believe that I'm on Team Mizuno as of yesterday and a full bag ambassador at 15? We are teammates now." And I was like,
way.
what in the world? And I just like started tearing up. I was like, that's so unexpected. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And so we chatted a little bit. Let's see if I can. And I was just like, "Hi, this is so sweet." Just kind of talked to her a little bit. And I told her, I was like, "Hey, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to retake the photos." So she's like, "Hey, I still have some photos." And so she sent me the photos. And I was like, "I hope that we get to retake this." And she's like, "We will, guaranteed."
That's
So that's
awesome.
my mission, like this year, somehow to get back to Albany, New York, so we can recreate a photo, but both of us repping Mizuno, like Mizuno bags.
Yeah.
Comes full
hats.
circle.
Yeah, so that was a really cool moment this week.
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, like I said, we've known you for a little bit now, and it seems like every time we get with you, there's like more and more that we're kind of getting to know and uncovering. And so all your stories are always so cool and so interesting. And I mean, that's kind of a little cherry on top of all the
you guys
things.
too.
So
I have to say Isaac's kind of got the craziest stories out of all of y'all.
Isaac,
Just kidding.
he's lived a fun life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
we like keeping him around. He's fun to work with. But you know, obviously, like a inspirational story, not necessarily like that's not why. I mean, you do it because it's bigger than the game. You know, you're bigger than the game, and the game's bigger than just one person. And being able to give back is awesome. You don't always think it's going to happen like that. So when it does,
Right.
from time to time, it's amazing, and it really makes you, you know, kind of look outside of yourself and say, "Wow, I do have a bit of a reach with what I can do, and I want to do more than just hit a ball." Right.
Right.
So with that, kind of share with us a little bit about the Belton Drive Foundation and what you do there.
Yeah. So started a nonprofit a couple of years ago, and honestly, I'll be completely honest. It's been tough because it's
Sure.
It's like, oh, I could do that with my nonprofit. Oh, I could, do that under the nonprofit. So a lot of things have just been like, I'm just gonna do. And so now finally putting things in place and putting programming in place and all that has been a lot of fun. And so essentially, I say the slogan is kind of like teeing up opportunities, linking communities, and driving change. My biggest heart is like, how do we redefine what it means to change the game of golf, but how do we use it to actually impact kids beyond the green and communities? Because most golf courses are built inside communities.
Yeah.
Most public courses are built inside communities. And so if a lot of people that are going to that course that live around it are not utilizing it, then how are we growing it? And so that's kind of like the biggest heart of it, the biggest initiatives, reimagining and reinventing the way that public courses are used. And then the biggest heart of it is like providing kids that might not be able to make it to a first tee, like partnering with organizations that currently exist, because there's no need to invent the wheel.
Right. Yeah.
And going like, collaboration's king. Like
100%.
How can we make sure that these kids that can't travel can still get all the benefits of the game? So
Yeah. And I think like you're seeing a huge shift in the game in general towards kind of using golf as a platform more and more often. And so using it as a platform to change lives is literally, throughout the course of your career kind of been your mission so far. And so seeing where it's going to go is something that we will be paying very close attention to. So.
All right, well, I think, for all of us that are just like sitting in here right now, right? Like this wouldn't be able, like, who knew that you would be able to be playing golf and being at the PGA show?
Oh yeah.
And meeting all the people that you meet. Like I would have never met you guys.
Yeah.
No.
And so, I mean, what's one of the coolest things golf has brought you guys?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I would say, man, like the last couple of years have been crazy with what we do now and the growth that we've seen since we started. Like we always, honestly, like we'll talk, I would say probably weekly about like, how are people trusting us to do what we do? Like, how are we even doing what we're doing? But at the core of it,
Are
honestly,
they not? Y'all think
That's the better question.
Y'all think that y'all are like this, but when I see y'all,
We are like
No.
this.
When I see y'all, I mean, it's just like so interesting, right? You're like, oh, when I saw Chris, you know, like,
Yeah.
I think flip version, it's like, when I see the wedgies. No, just kidding. When I see the wedge guys, you know, like, so.
Wow.
But I mean, like that's all been crazy. But the biggest thing that golf has done for me, I think, is I've been lucky enough to come from a golf family. Like golf was always there with dad, right?
Yeah, it was the way that we bonded, honestly.
And
a lot
so
of
the
time.
amount of rounds that I played with my dad and with Caden, like the three of us, is more than anybody else.
100%.
Our little brother plays a little bit as well, and then we've got extended family that plays. And so it's a very like familial thing.
Yeah.
And we've always been able to have that time and rely on that time and count on that time, which I think was huge growing up, honestly. Because, you know, like golf as a sport teaches you lessons by itself, but then being able to be with family and have some of those lessons come from that as well was I take for granted, honestly. But that's been a huge thing. And then I've been very fortunate to get quite a few of my friends into the game. When we were growing up and playing it, and I mean, you know this too, like golf wasn't cool when we were doing it as kids. And the amount of people that I've talked to now that have been playing for a few years and they're like, man, I wish when I was in high school or young, like I wish I was golfing because I want to be good at it now. You know, like I hear that all the time.
Yeah. Plot twist, no matter how hard you work, sometimes you just.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it wasn't cool. And so I had my family to play with, luckily. So I got a lot of time out there. And then I started inviting my friends to come, and they would come. And I've been very fortunate to have quite a few of them retain their love for it, and I get to golf with them now. And so just from a social aspect, both family and friends, that's like where I get a lot of my time with the people that I love.
Because you guys went on a trip to Robert
Alabama.
Trent Jones,
Yeah,
right?
we did bunch of the courses out
Hearing
there.
y'all talk about that, like, that's like such a gift that golf is
Oh,
giving.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and it was like when it was with friends of my dad, and they'd invited him on it, and his first thought was, oh, I want to bring
My boys.
Caden and myself out there. And so then we became friends with some of his friends out there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have happened any other way. Like, why would we meet or hang out with those guys?
Yeah.
You know? And then, funny enough, we're doing our first extended family golf trip next
in
month
a couple
nice.
weeks.
in southern Utah.
Yeah.
Kind of
Just
based
a close
off
to home
of
one,
what
but-
we did in
Yeah,
Alabama.
that's
Robert Trent
awesome.
Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like definitely kind of, you know, a lot of family-based things that have come through golf, but I would say even further just relationships in general. That's what golf has given me, because I've been able to, you know, connect with family, connect with friends, reconnect with old friends, but then meet people like you. I mean, we haven't even played a round of golf together, but like golf has created our relationship, right? And like hundreds of other people, and so I think a lot of people would probably say that, but like relationships is really the heart of golf.
And actually, I don't think I've shared this on the podcast before, but so Dane, who's not here today because we're at the PGA show and got a lot going on, and he's with Isaac as well, doing something else right now. Him and I went to school together, and that's where we met. And the first class that we were in together, the teacher had us do that, like say your name, say where you're from, and something cool about or something unique about yourself or something, you know, just those introductions. And we studied advertising, right? And so people were getting up and they're like, my name is this, and I'm from here, and I want to be a director on big shoots and all this stuff. So people were giving, like, in my mind, good answers at the time. They're like, oh, they're buttering up the teacher. They're doing, you know, saying what they're supposed to say. And I was like, I can't think of anything clever or witty at all.
Yeah.
And still at that time, golf wasn't it was pre-COVID.
Okay.
So
that
golf
says it all
wasn't
right
what
there.
it is
Yeah.
now still. And it wasn't as cool still. And so it got to me, I'm like, I'm Tanner. I'm from Heber City. I like to golf. And they're like, cool. Next, you know, that going on.
Yeah.
And I had gone before Dane. Again, never met Dane in my life, never talked to him in my life. And then the first interaction we had was, and I was quiet. Like, I didn't like to talk a bunch in class and all that stuff. So, like, I wasn't really going to talk to anybody on the first day like that. And then Dane comes up to me. He's like, hey, I'm Dane. I was like, Tanner. He's like, you the one that said you like to golf, right? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, he's like, me too. I was like, cool. And he's like, we should play sometime. I was like, for sure. That's how we got to know each other.
No way.
Golf.
Yep.
So good.
From day one. So
Now I'd have to say, like, whenever people are like, oh, tell us something, I'm always like, and I wish I could eat gluten.
well,
You know?
That
Sorry.
But you can play golf.
But Maybe I'll meet a Dane.
Maybe you'll meet a Dane from the gluten thing.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
But we have golf, and we're lucky for
Yeah,
it.
but
So.
yeah, so like golf just gives so
Yeah.
much. You
Yeah.
know? And I think that's like the cool part about it.
100%. Whoa.
Right there,
Nice.
brother.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming out. I mean, I
thanks for having
definitely
me.
don't think this is going to be the last time I'll have you on the podcast, but we're excited to see, obviously, what you're going to be doing in the next year or two.
You guys too.
And obviously what you're doing the rest of the week here at the PGA show.
Hopefully,
we'll
I'll
see you
be
tomorrow
more
morning.
on the East Coast this year.
I hope so, too. That'll be
Yeah,
nice.
I've spent a bunch of time out there, so it'd be nice to get out there a little bit more.
Well,
Right on.
wedge it to you.
There we go. Okay, thank you.